Shock and awe. The big room was full of noise. Aliens of all shapes and sizes were shouting at each other. Some had tentacles, some had wings, and some looked like big blobs of jelly. This was the Galactic Council, and today they were not happy. In the middle of the room, a tall blue alien named Zorblax tried to make everyone quiet. He had 4 arms and 3 eyes, and right now, all his eyes were wide with worry. "Please, everyone, we need to calm down," Zorblax shouted, but no one listened. They were too busy arguing. Suddenly, the big doors at the end of the room burst open. A small green alien ran in. He looked scared and out of breath. "News. Big news," the green alien yelled. The room went quiet. All eyes turned to the little green messenger. "What is it? Tell us," Zorblax said. The green alien took a deep breath. "The humans. They won the war." For a moment, no one made a sound. Then chaos broke out again. Aliens were shouting, crying, and some even fainted. "Impossible," shouted a big red alien with horns. "How could those primitive creatures beat us?" yelled another. Zorblax couldn't believe it. He sat down hard in his big chair. How did this happen? The humans were supposed to be weak. They were supposed to be easy to beat. As the shouting continued, Zorblax's mind went back to how this all started. 6 months ago, the Galactic Council had been bored. They ruled over most of the galaxy and had no real challenges left. Then, someone suggested attacking Earth. "Humans are funny creatures," the alien had said. "They still use wheels for transport. They haven't even colonized their own solar system yet." Everyone thought it was a great idea. Humans would be easy to beat, and it would be fun to watch them try to fight back. So, they declared war on Earth. They thought it would be over in a week. But then, something strange happened. The humans didn't give up. They fought back, and they fought hard. At first, the council thought it was cute, like watching a baby animal try to look scary. But as the weeks went by, the humans kept surprising them. The humans used crazy tricks. They turned their oceans into traps for alien ships. They made their cities disappear with clever holograms. They even trained animals to fight alongside them. The council sent more ships, more soldiers, but the humans just wouldn't quit. And now, after 6 months of fighting, the impossible had happened. The humans had won. Zorblax shook his head, coming back to the present. The room was still in chaos. Some aliens were crying in the corner. Others were arguing about whose fault it was. "We need to do something," shouted a tall, thin alien with a very long neck. "Yes, but what?" asked another. Zorblax stood up. He had an idea. It wasn't a good idea, but it was all he could think of. "We'll make fun of them," he said loudly. The room went quiet again. Everyone looked at Zorblax. "Make fun of them? What do you mean?" asked the red alien with horns. Zorblax smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. "We'll invite the humans here. We'll tell them it's for a peace talk. But instead, we'll mock them. We'll laugh at their primitive ways. We'll show the whole galaxy how stupid and backwards humans are." Slowly, the other aliens started to nod. Some began to smile. "Yes, good idea. We'll show those humans. They may have won the war, but we'll win the laugh." Zorblax felt proud of himself. This would work. They would make the humans look silly, and everything would be okay again. But in the back of the room, a young alien frowned. His name was Blip, and he was new to the council. He had studied humans, and he wasn't sure this was a good idea. Blip raised his hand. Excuse me," he said softly. "Maybe we shouldn't do this. The humans might." "Quiet," shouted Zorblax. "No one wants to hear from a newbie. This is a great plan, and we're doing it." Blip sighed and sat down. He had a bad feeling about this. Zorblax was already giving orders. "Send a message to Earth. Tell them we want to meet. Tell them to send their leaders here in 3 days." As the aliens rushed to obey, Zorblax sat back in his chair. He smiled to himself. Soon, everything would be back to normal. The Galactic Council would be on top again, and humans would know their place. But Zorblax didn't know that on Earth, humans were getting ready too, and they had some surprises of their own. The mocking session. 3 days passed quickly. The Galactic Council was busy getting ready for the humans' arrival. They planned a big show to make fun of the humans. Zorblax, the blue alien with 4 arms, was in charge. He ran around the big meeting room, shouting orders. "Put those primitive tools over there," he yelled, pointing at a pile of hammers and screwdrivers. "And bring in more plants. Humans love plants, the silly things." The other aliens rushed to obey. They filled the room with things they thought were human-like. There were bicycles, some old computers, and even a cow, which was not happy to be there. In one corner, they set up a human house. It was made of wood and had a pointy roof. Inside, they put a big box they called a TV and some chairs. Blip, the young alien who had doubts before, watched all this with worry. He tried to speak up again. Zorblax, are you sure this is a good idea? The humans did just win a war." Zorblax turned to Blip, his 3 eyes narrow with anger. "Listen, rookie. We're going to show these humans their place. Now go stand in the back and be quiet." Blip sighed and did as he was told. But he couldn't shake the feeling that something was going to go wrong. As the time for the humans to arrive got closer, more and more aliens came into the room. Soon, it was packed. There were tall aliens, short aliens, aliens with scales, and aliens with fur. They all wanted to see the humans get mocked. Suddenly, a loud voice boomed through the room. "The human delegation has arrived." The room went quiet. Everyone turned to look at the big doors. Slowly, the doors opened, and in walked 5 very ordinary-looking humans. There were 3 men and 2 women. They wore simple suits and didn't look scared at all. They walked calmly to the center of the room, where Zorblax was waiting. For a moment, no one spoke. The aliens were surprised. They had expected the humans to look funny or act scared, but these humans looked normal. Zorblax cleared his throat. "Welcome, humans, to the Galactic Council," he said in a loud voice. "We have brought you here to..." "Who?" One of the human women smiled. "To talk about peace," she asked in a kind voice. Zorblax blinked his 3 eyes. This wasn't going as planned, but he quickly remembered why they were really here. "No," he shouted. "We brought you here to show you how primitive and silly you are." The humans didn't react. They just stood there, looking calm. Zorblax pointed at the bicycle. "Look at this. You still use these simple machines to move around. How pathetic." A human man stepped forward. "Actually," he said, "many of us enjoy bicycles for exercise and fun. But we also have cars, planes, and spaceships." Zorblax felt his face get hot. This wasn't working. He tried again, pointing at the old computer. "And look at this ancient technology. This is what you use to think for you, isn't it?" Another human, an older man with gray hair, chuckled. "That's a museum piece," he said. "Our current computers are much more advanced. In fact, we have AI that could probably give your systems a run for their money." Now Zorblax was getting angry. He stomped over to the human house. "And this," he yelled. "You live in these tiny boxes made of dead trees." The second human woman spoke up. "Some of us do live in wooden houses," she said calmly. "But we also have giant skyscrapers, underwater cities, and space stations. We like variety." Zorblax was running out of ideas. He looked around desperately. His eyes fell on the cow, which was now eating some of the plants. "Aha!" he shouted. "You keep these smelly beasts around you. You even drink their bodily fluids." The humans looked at each other. Then they burst out laughing. "You mean milk?" one of them said, still chuckling. "Yes, some of us drink milk. It's quite nutritious. Would you like to try some?" Zorblax felt his plan falling apart. He looked around at the other aliens. Some looked confused. Others were starting to laugh too. In desperation, Zorblax tried one last time. He puffed up his chest and said in a loud voice, "Well, at least we don't start wars we can't win." The room went silent. The humans stopped laughing. They looked at each other, then back at Zorblax. The older man with gray hair stepped forward. His face was serious now. "No," he said in a quiet voice. "We don't start wars we can't win. We finish wars others start, and we win them." The room was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. Every alien was staring at the humans now, but not with mockery. They were staring with a mix of fear and respect. Zorblax felt very small suddenly. He opened his mouth to say something, but no words came out. Then, from the back of the room, a small voice spoke up. It was Blip. Mr. Zorblax, I think maybe we should listen to what the humans have to say. They might surprise us." Zorblax looked at Blip, then at the humans. He saw something in their eyes that he hadn't noticed before. It wasn't anger or fear. It was patience, and maybe a little bit of amusement. Slowly, Zorblax nodded. "Perhaps," he said in a quiet voice, "we should talk about peace after all." The humans smiled. "We'd like that," said the kind-voiced woman. "And maybe we can teach each other a few things along the way." As the aliens in the room started to relax, Zorblax realized something. The mocking session hadn't gone as planned. But maybe, just maybe, something better was about to begin. The human response. The big room was quiet now. All the aliens were looking at the 5 humans. Even the cow had stopped eating and was watching with big, curious eyes. Zorblax, the blue alien leader, didn't know what to do next. His plan to mock the humans had failed. He looked at the human with gray hair who had spoken last. "So, what do you want to say?" Zorblax asked, trying to sound brave. The gray-haired man smiled. He looked around the room, meeting the eyes of many aliens. Then he spoke in a clear, strong voice. "My name is Dr. James Carter," he said. "I'm the leader of Earth's defense forces, and I have a story to tell you all." The aliens leaned in, curious. Even Zorblax found himself wanting to hear more. Dr. Carter began his tale. "A year ago, we humans were just living our lives on Earth. We knew there might be aliens out there, but we'd never met any. Then, one day, your ships appeared in our skies. Some aliens looked proud at this, but others started to look a bit ashamed. You attacked without warning," Dr. Carter continued. "You destroyed some of our cities. You killed many people. We were scared and confused. But then, something happened that I don't think you expected." He paused, looking around the room again. Every alien was hanging on his words. "We came together," Dr. Carter said. "All the countries of Earth, all the people, we stopped fighting each other and joined as one. We had one goal, to defend our home." One of the alien children in the room raised a tentacle. But how did you beat us? We had better ships and weapons." Dr. Carter smiled at the child. "You're right, you did have better technology at first. But we humans have something special. We're very good at learning and adapting." He walked over to the pile of tools that Zorblax had put out to mock them. He picked up a simple hammer. "Look at this hammer," he said. "It's a very basic tool. But in the hands of a human, it can build a house or a bridge or even a spaceship. We took what we had, and we made it work." The aliens were nodding now, starting to understand. "We studied every ship of yours that crashed," Dr. Carter went on. "We learned from them. We improved our own technology. And we never, ever gave up." He put down the hammer and walked back to the center of the room. "But do you know what our greatest weapon was?" he asked. The aliens shook their heads. "Creativity," Dr. Carter said with a smile. We thought of solutions you never imagined." He turned to one of the other humans, a young woman with short black hair. "Dr. Chen, why don't you tell them about Project Octopus?" Dr. Chen stepped forward, grinning. "Well, we noticed your ships had trouble operating in water, so we built a fleet of underwater bases. We called it Project Octopus. Your sensors couldn't find us there, and we could pop up anywhere in the ocean to attack." The aliens gasped. One of them, a fish-like creature, spoke up. But that's cheating." Dr. Carter laughed. "In war, using your brain isn't cheating. It's survival." He nodded to another human, a tall man with dark skin. "Mr. Okoye, tell them about the animal corps." Mr. Okoye's deep voice filled the room. "We trained animals to help us fight. Dogs could sniff out your soldiers. Dolphins carried messages underwater. Even birds helped by confusing your sensors." The aliens were looking at each other now, amazed and a little scared. Dr. Carter continued, "But here's the most important thing. We didn't fight because we wanted to conquer you or destroy you. We fought to protect our home, our families, our world." He looked straight at Zorblax. "We don't want to rule the galaxy. We just want to live in peace, to explore, to learn. And yes, maybe to teach a little too." Zorblax found himself nodding. He was starting to see humans in a new light. But then, a grumpy-looking alien at the back shouted, "So what? You won one war. Big deal. We could still crush you if we wanted to." The room went quiet. Everyone looked at Dr. Carter to see how he would respond. Dr. Carter didn't get angry. He didn't even raise his voice. He just smiled a small, mysterious smile. "You're right," he said calmly. "You probably could crush us if we had shown you everything we can do. But we haven't." The grumpy alien's mouth fell open. "What? What do you mean?" Dr. Carter looked around the room again. "The war you saw, the one you think you lost, that was us fighting defensively. We were just trying to protect Earth." He paused, letting his words sink in. "You haven't seen what we can do when we really fight back. And trust me, you don't want to." The room was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. Every alien was staring at Dr. Carter, their eyes, or equivalent sensory organs, wide with surprise and a little fear. Zorblax found his voice. Are you threatening us?" Dr. Carter shook his head. "No, not at all. I'm just being honest with you. We don't want to fight. We want peace, but we will defend ourselves if we have to." He smiled again, and this time it was a warm, friendly smile. "But I have a better idea. Why don't we work together? We humans have a lot to learn about the galaxy. And maybe, just maybe, we have a few things we could teach you too." As Dr. Carter finished speaking, the room was filled with a new feeling. It wasn't fear or anger anymore. It was hope, and maybe a little excitement too. Blip, the young alien who had doubted the mocking plan from the start, stepped forward. I'd like to learn from the humans," he said bravely. Slowly, other aliens nodded and murmured in agreement. Zorblax looked at Dr. Carter, then at the other humans. He took a deep breath. "Dr. Carter," he said, "I think we have a lot to talk about." Dr. Carter nodded, smiling. "Yes, Zorblax, I believe we do." And with those words, a new chapter in galactic history began. The revelation. The big room was buzzing with excitement. Aliens of all shapes and sizes were talking in low voices, stealing glances at the 5 humans. Zorblax, the blue alien leader, was deep in thought. "Dr. Carter," Zorblax said finally, "you mentioned that we haven't seen what humans can really do. What did you mean by that?" Dr. Carter exchanged looks with his team. They all nodded, as if agreeing to something unspoken. "Well, Zorblax," Dr. Carter began, "I think it's time we showed you." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small silver cube. It was no bigger than his palm. The aliens leaned in, curious. "This," Dr. Carter said, Holding up the cube is our latest technology. We call it the holocube. Suddenly, the cube lit up. A beam of light shot out, and in seconds, the whole room was filled with a 3D hologram of the Milky Way galaxy. The aliens gasped. The image was so clear, so detailed, it was like they were floating in space. Impressive, Zorblax admitted. But we have similar tech. His words were cut off as the hologram zoomed in, focusing on a small part of the galaxy. Suddenly, they could see individual stars, planets, and "Those are your ships," Dr. Chen said, pointing to tiny dots moving between the stars. All of them, in real time. The aliens were speechless. Zorblax's 3 eyes were wide open in shock. But how?" he stammered. Mr. Okoy stepped forward. "We call it the quantum web. We've spread tiny quantum-entangled particles throughout the galaxy. They act like a giant, invisible net, giving us instant information about everything in space." The grumpy alien from earlier spoke up again. "That's impossible. You couldn't have done that without us noticing." Dr. Carter smiled. "Remember when we said we're good at being creative? We hid the particles in cosmic dust. You flew through them without even knowing." The hologram changed again, showing Earth. But it wasn't the Earth the aliens knew. This Earth was surrounded by a shimmering, transparent shield. "This is why your attacks stopped working," the young woman with short black hair, Dr. Chen, explained. "We developed a planetary shield. It can stop any weapon you have." Zorblax slumped in his chair. "So, we never stood a chance." "Oh, it wasn't easy," Dr. Carter assured him. "You gave us quite a fight. But humans have a saying. Necessity is the mother of invention. You forced us to become better, to invent things we never dreamed of before." The hologram changed once more, showing a strange-looking ship. It was sleek, almost organic in design. "This," Dr. Carter said proudly, "is the Stardancer, our newest ship. It doesn't just fly through space, it dances with it." As they watched, the ship in the hologram seemed to blur. Suddenly, it was on the other side of the galaxy. Instant transportation. A small green alien squeaked in disbelief. "Not quite," Mr. Okoy explained. "The Stardancer doesn't move through space. It moves space around itself. We borrowed that idea from how your ships work, but we made it better." The aliens were silent, trying to process all this information. Zorblax looked defeated. "Why are you showing us all this?" he asked quietly. "To scare us." Dr. Carter shook his head. "No, Zorblax. We're showing you this for 2 reasons. First, to help you understand why continuing this war would be a bad idea. And second, to show you what we can accomplish together if we work as allies instead of enemies." He turned off the holocube, and the holograms disappeared. The room seemed darker without them. "Imagine," Dr. Carter said, his voice full of excitement, "what we could do if we combined your knowledge of the galaxy with our creativity. We could explore further, discover more, and solve problems neither of us could handle alone." Blip, the young alien who had been quiet until now, suddenly spoke up. "Like what? What kind of problems?" Dr. Carter smiled at him. "Well, young one, how about solving the mystery of dark matter? Or finding a way to travel to other galaxies? Or maybe even understanding the origin of the universe itself?" The aliens started murmuring excitedly. Even Zorblax looked interested now. But Dr. Carter continued, his voice becoming serious. "For this to work, we need trust. We need to see each other as equals, as potential friends, not as enemies or as primitive beings to be mocked." He looked directly at Zorblax. "Can we do that? Can we start over, not as conquerors and conquered, but as fellow explorers of this vast universe?" The room was silent. Everyone was looking at Zorblax. The blue alien leader stood up slowly, all 3 of his eyes focused on Dr. Carter. For a moment, no one breathed. Then, Zorblax did something that shocked everyone. He smiled. "Dr. Carter," he said, extending one of his 4 hands, I believe we can. Dr. Carter grinned and shook Zorblax's hand. The room erupted in cheers and applause. As the noise died down, Blip raised his hand again. Dr. Carter, I have a question. Yes, Blip. If humans are so advanced now, why did you come here in a simple spaceship? Why not use the Stardancer? Dr. Carter chuckled. Well, we thought showing up in our most advanced ship might seem a bit aggressive. We wanted to appear friendly. Zorblax laughed, a deep, rumbling sound. You humans really are full of surprises, aren't you? Oh, Zorblax, Dr. Carter said with a twinkle in his eye. You have no idea. In fact, I have one more surprise for you all. He nodded to Dr. Chen, who pressed a button on her wrist device. Suddenly, the walls of the room seemed to melt away, revealing the vastness of space around them. The aliens gasped. They weren't in a room at all. They were on a ship, hovering above their home planet. Welcome, Dr. Carter said with a grin, to the Stardancer. We thought you might like a little tour of the galaxy. As the ship prepared to leap across the stars, the aliens and humans looked at each other with new understanding and excitement. A new age of galactic cooperation was about to begin, and the universe would never be the same. The new galactic order. The Stardancer glided smoothly through space, carrying its mixed crew of humans and aliens. Inside, the atmosphere was buzzing with excitement and curiosity. Zorblax, the blue alien leader, couldn't stop staring out of the giant windows. This is incredible, he said, his 3 eyes wide with wonder. Dr. Carter smiled. Just wait until you see this, he said, nodding to Mr. Okoye. Mr. Okoye touched a panel, and suddenly, the ship seemed to stretch. For a moment, everything blurred. Then, as quickly as it started, it was over. What just happened? Blip asked, looking a bit green, or greener than usual. We just traveled halfway across the galaxy, Dr. Chen explained with a grin. Welcome to the Andromeda arm of the Milky Way. The aliens gasped as they looked out the windows again. The stars had completely changed. They were now looking at a part of the galaxy they had never seen before. But that's impossible, one alien shouted. It would take years to travel this far. Dr. Carter shook his head. Not with our space-folding technology. We can cross the galaxy in minutes. Zorblax slumped into a chair, overwhelmed. I don't know what to think anymore. You humans have surpassed us in ways we never imagined. Dr. Carter sat next to him. Zorblax, this isn't about surpassing anyone. It's about working together. Imagine what we could achieve if we combined your knowledge with our technology. As if on cue, alarms started blaring throughout the ship. Red lights flashed. What's happening? Blip cried out, panicking. Dr. Chen was quickly checking the ship's systems. Her face turned serious. We're detecting a massive energy surge nearby. It's like nothing we've ever seen before. The ship's windows automatically zoomed in on a point in space. Everyone watched in awe as a huge, swirling vortex of energy appeared. What is that? Zorblax asked, his voice barely a whisper. Dr. Carter shook his head. We don't know. This is new to us too. Suddenly, a booming voice filled the ship. It seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Greetings, She-Eildorian of the Milky Way, the voice said. We are guardians of the cosmic Web. We AKVV in duty your progeriestas. Everyone on the ship was frozen, staring at the swirling vortex. The voice continued. For eons, we AAV a species to reach the illevel of ADVA and CMNT to join US. Today, we wit in is two races, they'd have pot into. Dr. Carter and Zorblax looked at each other, then back at the vortex. Humans, the voice boomed, your creativity and resilience are impressive. Aliens of the Galactic Council, your knowledge and experience are vast. The vortex pulsed with each word, sending waves of energy through space. But alone, neither of you are ready. Only together can you hope to face the challenges that lie ahead. Blip, gathering all his courage, spoke up. What challenges? There was a pause, and when the voice spoke again, it seemed almost sad. The universe is dying, young one. Entropy and series. Galaxies are colliding. Dark energy tears apart the fabric of space-time. The aliens and humans looked at each other, fear and confusion on their faces. But there is hope, the voice continued. If you can learn to work together, to combine your strengths and overcome your differences, you may be able to heal save the cosmos. Dr. Carter stepped forward. How? How can we help? The vortex pulsed brightly. That is for you to discover. We can'tntrvrdirect. But we see and guide you if you choose to accept this responsibility. Zorblack stood up, standing next to Dr. Carter. This is bigger than our petty war, isn't it? He said quietly. Dr. Carter nodded. Much bigger. Zorblax turned to the vortex. We accept. We will work together. As do we, Dr. Carter added. The voice seemed pleased. Very well. Your journey begins now. We will be teaching, and when the time is right, we will speak again. With that, the vortex began to shrink, eventually disappearing completely. The ship was left in silence. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Blip, his voice shaking a little, asked, What do we do now? Dr. Carter and Zorblax looked at each other, then at their respective teams. Slowly, smiles began to spread across their faces. Now, Dr. Carter said, we get to work. We have a universe to save. Zorblax nodded. And we'll do it together. Over the next few months, changes swept across the galaxy. The war was officially ended. Humans were welcomed into the Galactic Council, not as newcomers, but as equals. Knowledge and technology were shared freely. Alien scientists marveled at human creativity, while human engineers were amazed by alien tech. Together, they made breakthroughs that neither could have achieved alone. The Stardancer became the first of many joint human-alien ships, exploring the farthest reaches of the galaxy. Blip, to his delight, was chosen as one of the first alien crew members to train with humans. On Earth, aliens were welcomed with open arms. Humans were eager to learn about their new galactic neighbors. Schools started teaching alien languages, and alien culture became the latest trend. In return, humans shared their art, music, and food with the galaxy. Alien worlds soon had their own pizzerias and rock concerts. Some things, it seemed, were truly universal. But amid all the excitement, Dr. Carter, Zorblax, and their teams never forgot the warning from the Guardians. They worked tirelessly, searching for ways to combat entropy and save the universe. It wasn't always easy. There were misunderstandings, disagreements, and challenges. But each time, they remembered the bigger picture and found a way to work through their problems. 5 years after that fateful day on the Stardancer, Dr. Carter and Zorblax stood together on a new ship, the Hope. It was the most advanced vessel ever created, a perfect blend of human and alien technology. As they prepared for their first mission to study dark energy, Dr. Carter turned to his friend. You know, Zorblax, he said with a smile, I'm glad your plan to mock us failed. Zorblax laughed, a sound that no longer seemed strange to human ears. As am I, James. As am I. With that, the Hope launched into space, carrying with it the combined hopes of humans and aliens alike. The universe was vast and full of challenges, but they would face them together. And somewhere, in the cosmic web that connected all things, the Guardians watched and waited, hopeful for the future of their young proteges. The adventure was just beginning.